If you're an executive in a nonprofit organization, then you understand that budgetary planning is essential to your success. But putting it together can be a whole nother story. So I've put together a step-by-step guide to help you construct a budget in a way that will meet the needs of your organization. All right, so let's look at the steps to constructing an annual budget for your nonprofit. Step number one is take a look back. Yeah, kind of like the rearview mirror of your financial car. Look backwards first. So get a file, get a spreadsheet, get a report that has 12 months worth of data. See, you need 12 months because if you spend a little bit of time trying to annualize the numbers you have, you're making a lot of assumptions that just may overlook something. So I recommend getting a 12-month look back. It considers seasonality and it gives you a full year to look at. Next, we want to take a look at accounts that are over budget. So all within our first step, taking our look back. Let's look at accounts that are over budget. What does the story tell us? Is there a reason? Was there a change in course mid-year as to what we would be spending money on? So we added a program and had new expenses. Was there just something we flat forgot to budget for? Well, make a note of that. We want to add it in. But then we want to move on also to the step of looking at what came in under budget. So what 12-month numbers are under the budget? They tell a story too. Are we budgeting for something that we're no longer doing and those funds are just sitting there available on the sideline? We want to reduce the budget and put those dollars to another very important area. This work of looking back is going to give you a deeper understanding and really advise you so well as you plan for the budget. So step two is assess all the revenue variables. So the revenue variables may include things like grant sources. Do you have any applications in or any pending support from a foundation or maybe a grant that you produce a fee for service type arrangement on? Well, are there any trends anticipated? Any changes happening in that revenue source? You'll want to plan for those. Also in the revenue area, a lot of nonprofits are contribution oriented. I work with a lot of churches and this is right where they're at. Really, almost all of their revenue comes from contributions. So this is where you want to pause and do a donor analytical analysis. And here are a couple of things you're really looking for. Are the numbers of givers that you have going up or down? What about the average gift sizes? Are they going up or down? Very much, the more concentrated you are in contributions, the more thorough your research needs to be here. You really need to understand the composition, sometimes by tiers of givers. So sometimes a large group do a small amount of the giving and vice versa, just the traditional Pareto principle. So you want to really look at that. Another example would be, what if you had a tier of large givers who are all in the same industry? Seeing this, a church that's in a farming community, and that particular farming community is you already know, going to be hit by or has been hit by a reason why their income would be much lower this year. Well, you want to consider how would that impact then trickle into your contributions. So that wraps up step two, which is really thoroughly looking at your revenues and wanting to set them in a way that makes sense based on what you know. Now, you're never going to know it all, and you will want to be able to be flexible throughout the year if revenues aren't hitting to adjust your expenses. Okay, step three is actually salaries. Okay, salaries are the biggest expense in a nonprofit, pretty much without exception. If you've got an exception, I'd love to hear about it. But my experience is that nonprofit salaries are the largest expense on the budget. So with that, I've done a lot of blogs and posts, videos out there on this topic of salary setting in nonprofits and managing salaries. I want to refer you to those. But I'd also say, for the purpose of thinking about budget, here are a couple of considerations. You want to think about, do you have any promotions this year? So do you have any staff who have increased their level of contribution and leadership, and you need to think about a promotion from maybe a coordinator level to a director level and the corresponding salary impacts of that. Second is, are you going to add any positions? Do you have a situation where you need to combine positions? We could also say the same is true. Do you need to tighten the belt and do away with the position because while it's been valuable, it's not necessary and those resources should go somewhere else? And then the last thing is you want to think about cost of living adjustments. So doing that research about your particular nonprofit industry. What is the average cost of giving? What's the cost of living, excuse me? And also just across the nation, is there, you want to look at, and there's tons of great resources out there that talk about the cost of living. And in high inflationary times, like we're in at the time of this video, that starts to be a lot more of where you end up spending your resources. Staff need to be paid as much more as you can possibly do to keep them in a place where they can, manage the effects in their own personal finances at this high inflationary time. Not to mention that down the street, someone might be paying more, and you want to stay as competitive as you can during these times. So in this, wrapping up step 3 on salaries, pause here to look at your salary to revenue relationship. I find, again, in churches especially, that there's a pretty solid percentage, and especially you probably have in your organization a historical percentage. And then you want to look at that and to say, okay, are we still staying in relationship? So if in our step for revenues are going down, we really don't want salaries to go up, especially not very significantly, or we're not going to be able to balance that budget. Step number 4 is to consider your expenses. This is absolutely a step that requires getting staff members involved. You need to get others to help build the numbers that they know, or to formulate the budget requests for the programs they lead and the numbers that they are responsible for managing through the year. Previous expenses, again, remember, they're a very good indicator. So sometimes, practically speaking, I just run a detailed list of expenses, or financial people call it detailed ledger of those expenses for the past 12 months, and say to that person, hey, can you look at this and tell me what you think we're going to need for the next 12 months? And a well-articulated proposal, meaning one that just doesn't say $1,200, but says, well, we meet with 12 individuals and we spend about $100 on each of them, so it's a $1,200 budget. So get that request to be detailed out. Also, here's where you want to align your strategic planning efforts. Chances are, I hope, that you've done some planning for your next year. So you're thinking about things that you're going to do, activities you'll have, changes that are up and coming, program adjustments or introductions. All of that information that comes in right here in step number 4. Make the budget follow the vision, and put those things into your budget. Finally, you're going to wrap it all together in step number 5, put it all together. Using your accounting system, ideally you can put in all these budget numbers, or if it's not quite good enough, then maybe you're using a spreadsheet. I discourage that, but it works. Maybe it's a combination of both. And you want to put all of these numbers together, your revenue, your salaries, and your expenses. And you want to see, where do you land? As a nonprofit, your number 1 priority is going to be a balanced budget. That means to say that you don't plan to spend dollars that you're not bringing in. And if you're bringing in dollars, you should plan to spend them, or have a plan that you are saving them for a particular purpose. So if you get to this step and things aren't working, we don't get revenue minus expenses equals 0, then you want to go back to the drawing board and start tweaking different budget numbers, start reevaluating them, so that you can land at a balanced budget. All right. Well, there you go. That's a step-by-step guide to how nonprofits should adjust or approach their budget planning process. Obviously, I have decades of experience in this, and that's a pretty high-level flyover. If you have any specific questions, feel free to message me on social. And if this was really helpful, well, here's what I would want you to know. This is what I offer. I offer this nonprofit CFO expertise. And so I'm putting content like this out every single week. And if you'd like to make sure you don't miss one of those tips, then jump on my website and sign up to receive these financial tips to your inbox, so that we make sure you don't miss one.